Welcome, everyone. On behalf of Dallas College and the sustainability team, my name is Faye Davis, and I'm joined by my team member, Lori Dela Cruz Lewis, who's working in the background. We are also grateful for the support of the Dallas College WebEx support team, who are also here with us today. Today's session is Redbird Mall Developing for the Community, and I'd like to introduce your speaker, Peter Brodsky. Peter Brodsky is an investor and business executive who, through a majority-owned company, owns the reimagined Redbird development, formerly known as Southwest Center Mall, and prior to that, Redbird Mall. He is investing in the mall and its surrounding land to restore it to a place of pride and quality in the community. And Peter received a BA in Russian literature from Yale College, and he lives in Dallas, Texas. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today. Please feel free to begin whenever you are ready.
Well, thank you so much, Faye, and thank you to everyone at Dallas College for this opportunity to speak to you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to walk you through a presentation, and then I'm happy to take any questions at the end. The first thing that I want to say is that I want to make sure that everybody is clear that this is not a philanthropic endeavor. So frequently what we're taught about Southern Dallas and what we assume about Southern Dallas is that anything that goes on there must be philanthropic in nature. And that's because the area is I think, very, very badly misunderstood. And I always try to make clear at the beginning of these presentations that we're making an investment here, and we're expecting a return on our capital. I think that's important because philanthropy has its limits, and if you really want an area to be developed, it has to be attractive to folks who are going to invest real dollars in there, and that's what we're doing. The thesis under which we're investing is really a perception versus reality thesis. And what I mean by that is that North Dallas, which is for a lot of reasons that I'll go into, but I'm sure many on the Zoom already know, North Dallas is where most of the capital and a lot of the power in the city of Dallas resides. And that is not by accident. Everybody knows that the city has a very robust history of segregation, and that historically Southern Dallas has been the African American part of town, and North Dallas has been the white part of town. And anybody who's read The Accommodation understands that this segregation was violently enforced. The result of that segregation, the result of policies of real capital starvation of Southern Dallas over many decades have created a situation in which Southern Dallas is significantly less wealthy than North Dallas, but it is not uniformly so. This is a huge area of the city with hundreds of thousands of people, and it can't all be painted with one brush. While the policies that I mentioned a moment ago stopped a long time ago, there's a hangover of those policies, and the hangover is in the perception. The perception is that Southern Dallas, and I'm using pictures here that are absurdly oversimplified to make a point, but the perception, broadly speaking, of Southern Dallas in North Dallas and among investors and among retailers, et cetera, is that this is the housing stock and the outdoor activity that one can expect to find in Southern Dallas, and yet there's little to no acknowledgement of the types of housing, very nice housing that can be found in Southern Dallas, and the fact that Southern Dallas, like every other place in the city, is filled with families that just want to go about their lives and enjoy themselves with as much comfort and convenience as they possibly can. So when I talk about Southern Dallas, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the area on your screen that is purple. It's generally speaking south of the Trinity or south of I-30. and it is 208 square miles of the city. It is more than 50% of the city. Now, there's a lot of conversation, and I understand there was a conversation on Facebook this morning about whether what is the definition of Southern Dallas, what's the definition of South Dallas, what's Oak Cliff, and where is Redbird. So the reason why I call it Southern Dallas is because South Dallas is a neighborhood in the northern part of the South by Fair Park. It's a very specific neighborhood, sunny South Dallas. It is not Oak Cliff. It is not Pleasant Grove. It is not Highland Hills. It is South Dallas. And what I found is that when folks come into this community to do business or even to try to help, and they refer to Oak Cliff as South Dallas, people stop listening. And they stop listening because the speaker has already shown that they don't know anything about the community. And so it doesn't seem like a worthwhile investment in time on behalf of the listener. So the entire purple area is what I refer to as Southern Dallas, I and many others. Oak Cliff is really the left-hand side of the purple part of the map. It's a huge area in which there are many, many, many neighborhoods: Kessler Park, Bishop Arts, Redbird, Elder Oaks, Wynwood. There's a lot of Keastwood. There's lots of different neighborhoods. Redbird is one of those neighborhoods in the southwestern part of Oak Cliff and in southwest Dallas. The point is, this is a huge area, and what happens in Fair Park really has nothing to do with what's happening in Redbird. But in the greater imagination and in very often portrayed in the media, one would be led to believe that they're right next to each other when in fact they're more than 10 miles apart. And so from an investment perspective, the idea was, hey, there's a perception versus reality mismatch. The purchasing power of different parts of Southern Dallas is grossly underestimated because of that perception versus reality mismatch. And as a result, there is a supply-demand imbalance. The supply-demand imbalance is that there is a demand for a large amount of quality amenities, but there's really very, very little supply of it. And that's what we're trying to address at Redbird. Is everybody still with me? Just want to make sure. Faye? Yes, okay, thumbs up. Great. Okay, so if you have a thesis that you're going to supply quality amenities to an area of Dallas that doesn't have a lot of quality amenities, there's really no better place you can do that than Redbird. Why? Because Redbird is a place in the community that in the past had high quality amenities, was a point of pride in the community. It was a very vital and alive mall for 25 years or so, and the brand has great resonance in the community because of that history. The mall began to decline in the late 90s due to increased crime in the area, and also because a lot of folks were moving to the southern suburbs in search of better schools. And at that point, Dillard's and JCPenney left to join a lot of the population in Cedar Hill. And once a mall loses some of its anchors, it's really not a very vital mall anymore. It's not really viable. And that's when it began to go from hand to hand to hand, from owner to owner to owner. It was rebranded Southwest Center Mall in 1998, which really offended the community because I think the community felt, and rightly so, that it was being somehow disrespected because by an owner running away from the name. And the owners did what owners in predominantly African American communities often do, unfortunately, which is to milk assets. The assets produce plenty of cash flow, but the owners don't reinvest in those assets to keep them up to par. And that's what happened with this mall. That is the exact opposite of our strategy. Our strategy is to reinvest every dollar we can, plus a lot of new capital into the mall to remake it, to bring it back up to the quality level that the community desires and deserves and can afford. But the one difference now is that it's not just going to be a mall. We all know that malls are dying or dead. Most people on this call probably did their Christmas shopping in bed on Amazon last year, not in a Sears. And so the business model of the mall is changing. And so we are redeveloping it into a mixed use development. And I'll get more into that in a moment. So other reasons why Redbird is a great place to develop other than the history. Well, it's at the intersection of two major highways, so it's very conveniently located and easy to get to. It's very close to downtown. I think most people in North Dallas don't realize how close Redbird is, and it's actually closer to downtown than the Galleria. And there's plenty of income both in the Redbird area, in the Greater Oak Cliff area, and in the southern suburbs. Now, I've mentioned North Dallas several times, but I do want to be clear about something, and that is that we are not trying to attract North Dallas people to come avail themselves of the amenities that we're going to be putting in at Redbird. All are welcome, and if folks would like to come, that's fantastic. But this is expressly not a gentrification play. By gentrification, I mean that we are not trying to attract new people into the community to displace the people who are already in the community. Rather, we are trying to provide the amenities that the people who are already here want and serve the existing community. More about the demographics. We've got some very, very, very accurate information about the demographics of the Redbird customer. So based on scarily accurate cell phone data, we know that the average income of the folks that come to the Redbird property on a day-to-day basis is between $75,000 and $100,000 a year, so solidly middle class. 86% home ownership, and 64% have some college or college degree. There's also a lot of other reasons that people are in the community other than living here. You've got many, many African-American megachurches that bring in tens of thousands of people every Sunday and Wednesdays, and choir practices and dance practices and youth activities. And then you have a lot of institutions of higher learning. You've got Paul Quinn College and UNT Dallas down to the east on Camp Wisdom Road. You've got Dallas Baptist to the west, and you've got two of the Dallas colleges. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there just are not a lot of amenities, very limited competition. We opened a Starbucks in southern Dallas. This slide says there's two, and technically that's true, but one of them is right on I-30. So really, our Starbucks is the only Starbucks in the entire 208 square miles of southern Dallas that is there to serve southern Dallas. There's also likewise no movie theaters in the area. But it's not just retail amenities. There's also very limited office space. If you think about the office space in this city, the vast majority of it is north of I-30. The same with medical facilities, Class A apartments, branded hotels. The list goes on and on and on. And that is what we're going to be doing with Redbird. That is what we're going to be reusing these buildings and repurposing them into all of these types of amenities that folks want. Now, it is impossible to do business in southern Dallas if you aren't willing to engage with the community. Why is that? Because there is a very, very long history of the community being poorly served or exploited by real estate developers. I mentioned earlier the very common milking strategy, but if you just look at the amenities that are provided, they are very rarely first class. And so folks are understandably and very reasonably skeptical when a white guy from North Dallas comes in and says, hey, I've bought this prize asset and don't worry, it's all going to work out fine. We understood that. We have a lot of respect for the community. We want to partner with the community. And quite frankly, through our community engagement, we've gotten some of the best ideas that we've been able to implement directly from the community. So we engage with folks. We have committed to using a lot of minority-owned contractors to make sure that folks in the community are actually the ones that are profiting from all the money we're investing. We have a diverse ownership group, a diverse management team. We are really trying to be embedded in the community so that everybody around feels that they have a stake in the outcome of this development. Now, this is sort of a more mundane real estate challenge that we've had, but this is the parcel of Redbird. Inside the ring road is what you would know as the mall. Outside this oval ring road are all of the smaller parcels that make up this 122 acres. Now, every color here represents a different owner. So it was news to me because I was new to the real estate industry when I first started on this project, but most malls were developed such that one group owned the interior portions of the mall, and each of the anchor stores was owned by those anchor stores rather than rented. And so there were 6 different owners of the mall and then 22 other owners of other properties. Well, what we bought back in September of 2015 was just the red part of this picture. And you really can't do much with that. What we now own today is what's red. What's yellow is what we have under contract. So we have about 100 acres of the property. We still don't own everything, but we own enough that we can set the tone for the development. And one of 2 things will happen. Either folks, other landowners will understand that they will actually make more money if they provide a better product, or they'll sell and we'll do it for them. The other thing that you can't, that we couldn't have done this without is the city of Dallas. The city of Dallas is an absolutely key partner in this endeavor. Why? Because it is so unusual for a real estate developer to execute on a thesis like this, where we really are providing high quality amenities and we are not trying to attract other people into the area to displace those who are already here. And as a result, the rents really aren't what one would want. But it still costs the same to put, to build a really attractive building. It costs the same in Redbird as it does in Highland Park. And so the city of Dallas decided that in order to help us prove out the thesis, they would provide a lot of support, both financial and otherwise. And through a variety of different mechanisms, they've done just that. The city expects to make a return on that investment through increased property taxes and through increased development in other parts of southern Dallas. So we've been at this. It's really not 5 years anymore. I need to update the slide. It's more like 6 years. What have we been able to accomplish? These are just some of the major tenants that we have been able to attract to Redbird. You'll see we've got Parkland, Children's, and UT Southwestern. So we have a major health component here, about 200,000 square feet of medical facilities to serve the community. We have a Class A apartment building in Palladium. We have Chime Solutions and the Deck at Redbird and Workforce Solutions, all of which are offices. So we have about 1,500 people who are employed here every day. That number will grow to more like 2,500 over the next year. We have a Marriott Courtyard Hotel that is scheduled to break ground later this year. We've got banking, we've got education, and this Starbucks that I've mentioned a couple of times is the number 3 Starbucks in the city of Dallas. So very, very successful. We are looking to get more restaurants, more retail, more office, so that this really transforms into a vibrant community asset with where people really can live, work, and play. So this is what the property looked like when we first bought it, and this is what it looked like in February. Same angle. So you can see the apartment building is open. It's 100% leased. You can see that we have created the Starbucks here on what used to be Macy's parking field. This is a large Foot Locker building on the former Macy's parking field. This is going to be a 1-acre green space, call it a mini Clyde Warren Park. You've got UT Southwestern over here. This is the Parkland building. And then we're going to keep the first floor of the mall as retail. So a lot is happening. You can see that the parking fields have all been upgraded to concrete with landscaping. We're going to have terrific lighting. And so it's really going to be a first-class environment. And then finally, this is a rendering of what the property ultimately will look like. And most of the things that are on here are things that I've just described. So with that is my presentation. And with that, I'd open it up to any questions that folks may have.
Thank you so much, Peter. So we have a few questions. I'll start off with the most recent one, just because you just mentioned it. So Lori's wondering how much of the 122 acres will be converted to green space. And I know you showed us the little mini Clybourne Park. That sounds amazing. But can you describe that? And are there any other plans for more green space?
Yes, so there's what we're calling the lawn at Redbird, which is the 1-acre green space. We're also going to have an area that we're calling the plaza, which is on the west side, that'll be green space. And then there may be future green spaces that we can create. We still have about 25 acres of property that is undeveloped. So for right now, that will be green space. As the development continues, most of that will be converted into something else, but we may retain some green space. We also have plans to create what we're calling a wellness trail, which will be a heavily landscaped walking trail around the oval of the ring road. So we're trying to create density, and it's not designed to be a public park, but we do understand that urban areas need to have green space in order for them to be successful, because that's where people want to come hang out.
Yes, thank you. And that actually leads into the next question. How walkable is this project from the surrounding neighborhoods?
Well, from the surrounding neighborhoods, Camp Wisdom does have sidewalks. I know that Councilman Tanell Atkins, who's the councilman on the south side of Camp Wisdom, Casey Thomas is the councilman on the north side of Camp Wisdom, plans to have some upgrades to the sidewalks on Camp Wisdom. But it really depends on where in the community you're coming from. Some of the streets have sidewalks, some don't. What we've made sure of is that once you're here, it is totally walkable.
Thank you. Next question is, what percentage of the multifamily housing is affordable, or do you know the price range on that?
Yes. So this particular building is actually 70% affordable. And we did that for a couple reasons. The first is we really wanted to put an exclamation point on the end of the sentence that we are not trying to displace folks. The second thing is that we wanted a true Class A facility. And that means a structured parking garage where you can park on your floor and get out. It means granite countertops. It means a beautiful lobby space that you can reserve and have a party there with a kitchen. There's a business center. There's internet throughout. So the irony is that the best way for us to do that was to create a building that had a majority of its units being affordable. And the reason for that is that there weren't any comparables in the area. There really wasn't any Class A. There aren't any Class A buildings in the area. And so the developer Palladium didn't really have any basis other than a gut feeling on which to project what rents would be. And so the city gave Palladium a pretty significant investment so that they could afford the Class A amenities, and the quid pro quo for that was affordability. The next building, I think, we will always want to have affordability components in the building, but the next building, I think, will not be majority affordable.
Thank you. Next question. Are there any spaces reserved or available for community interactions for things like hobbies or community events? And I think you touched on this a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, inside the mall, we have a very large center court. It's 25 or 30,000 square feet. We allow any community organization to utilize that. Our strategy or our rule is if you don't charge, we don't charge. So if you're a private business and you want to have something and you're charging folks, then we're going to charge rent. If you're a community organization and you're doing something that's truly for the community, you're welcome to use that center court. We have a community room that's about 5,000 square feet with, AV capabilities that has the same rule. And then we'll apply the same standard for our green spaces as well.
Thank you. And Sharender wants to know, she noticed a grocery store. What is the name of that grocery store?
That name of the grocery store at the moment is I Wish. We are trying very, very, very hard to get a grocery store. We know exactly where the grocery store should go. I actually wrote an op-ed in the Dallas Morning News 2 Sundays ago about how difficult it's been to get a grocery store to come to Redbird. And that has to do with all of the misperceptions about the area that I referenced at the beginning of the presentation. We are continuing to try. The one thing we will not do, though, is put in a grocery store that doesn't meet our quality standards. So we're not going to put in a low-end grocery store. We are only going to put in a grocery store that has, a very robust perimeter of the store with fresh fruits and vegetables and deli and fresh meats, et cetera, bakery. We want to provide here exactly what gets provided in so many other places around the city. We have not yet found that grocery store willing to do it, but we will.
Thank you. Thank you. And the second part to her question is, what about security? Do you guys have security a team in place already or protocols in place?
We do. We have a fabulous security team that has been at the mall for longer than I have. We have an excellent safety record. The crime rate at North Park is much higher than the crime rate at Redbird. To be honest with you, we probably over-secure the area. And let me tell you what I mean by that. What I don't mean is that we're trying to turn this into a police state where the patrons themselves feel policed. That is not what we do. However, we are also aware that because of the preconceived notions about crime in the area and the human tendency towards confirmation bias, if there were to be a major crime and, God forbid, a violent crime at the development, that would only reconfirm what folks already think about Redbird. Whereas there can be and have been murders in the North Park parking lot or in the garage at the shops at Park Lane. it doesn't faze anyone. We believe that it would faze people here, and so we make sure that we do everything we can do to have a presence on the site at all times. Of course, we have all of the cameras, et cetera, but that's really for diagnosis after the fact. It's much less so for prevention. The prevention, we use human beings.
Thank you. So we have joining us today Dr. Jasmine Parker. She is a senior director in our DEI department, and she would like to ask you a question herself. So we're going to go ahead and let her ask.
Great.
Jasmine, go ahead. Let me know if you need help unmuting.
I actually don't have a question. I have a comment for you. And it's a thank you, honestly. Peter, I am a native of Oak Cliff from the Redbird area. And I was a part of the community conversation 6 years ago when you came to the Oak Cliff Presbyterian Church and Casey Thomas helped to facilitate the conversation. And I want to first commend you for listening to so many different constituents with so many different perspectives on what they wanted to see. And also thank you for restoring the name back to Redbird, because you're absolutely right. It means a great deal to our community. And seeing that the feedback was directly applied from what community members had to say about making sure we had event spaces, we had counseling facilities, healthcare facilities, high-end retail shops, and you were humble, but let me do a humble brag on you. We not only have Foot Locker, we have Kids Foot Locker and Champs, and so many other entities that are coming in. And I just want to commend you for all of your hard work. You're not engaging in gentrification in any way. You're restoring the wonderful aspects of what it means to be from this area. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate those words. Thank you. I am humbled by them. I will say that I remember that meeting, and that was the meeting where someone said that they wanted an incubator space. And that really sent us down a road that we hadn't frankly thought of before, which was to not only create an incubator space in partnership with the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, but it began to get the wheels turning about providing office spaces. And so I'm here to tell you that, that the community meetings were definitely a two-way street. I think there was a huge benefit to us. I know the community, it was important to the community to be consulted with, but we got a lot out of it.
Thank you, Peter. So just a few more questions. Peter, can you talk to us just a little bit about what challenges you faced, like just the biggest challenges you faced throughout this whole process?
I'd say I'd divide that into two categories. The real estate challenges were huge. They're not as interesting, but it's very, very difficult to turn a car-centric, inwardly facing mall into a walkable, outwardly facing mixed-use development. And there were all sorts of technical and engineering challenges. It's been difficult to buy all the properties. We've had to do 13 or 14 different transactions with different owners. But those are sort of the challenges you expect. I think the biggest hurdle that we've had to overcome is what I've talked about so much today, which is the perception. And I will say on a personal note that this project has really opened my eyes to the racial dynamic and struggle in this city and in this country. I realize full well that I'll never experience it firsthand, but being embedded in an African American community, trying to execute a thesis of proving to people that this African American community has money to spend and has the same desires as everybody else for comfort and convenience has really been eye-opening, not because I found, virulent, conscious racism where nobody has goodwill. I've found plenty of goodwill, but I've also found plenty of unconscious bias, of bad habits, of wrong assumptions, wrong perceptions, that really have made me understand how far we've come so far, but we have so far to go in terms of really everyone viewing everyone else as just like them with the same human needs and desires. That's really been the struggle. And I'll give you an example. I was talking with a company, and I was trying to convince them to bring their office to Redbird. And the person said to me, about half of our employees live in North Dallas, and they just don't want to commute this far. And I said, yeah, but that means the other half of your office lives in Southern Dallas. They also don't want to commute that far. Oh, I never thought of that. And, I don't think that person was a bad person, but that person had been conditioned to think about the creature comforts of one group of people and not the other group of people. And I'm speaking in racial terms. And so that has been the biggest challenge. The bright side of that coin is that the vast majority of people want to do better. They want to learn. Their hearts are in the right place. But there's a long DE&I education that we all need to go through and keep going through.
Agreed. Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. Next question. Does your incubator center have high-speed internet? Should a small business owner desire to establish an office there? It kind of leads into that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So the incubator space is run by the Dallas Entrepreneur Center. It's called the DEC, and it's a full office. It has high-speed internet, and it's a co-working space, but it also has entrepreneurial supports. So if you're an existing business and you're just looking for a co-working space to have a place to use for your office, it's got everything you would want. If you are starting up and you need to learn about accounting or finance or marketing, or you need access to capital, they have extensive programming there that is intended to support entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in this community. I mean, one of the results of there not being very much large office space in the area is that if you do want to work near where you live, generally speaking, you're starting your own gig. Because there aren't large corporations that have their offices in this part of town. So I found that this is an incredibly entrepreneurial community. And so there's lots of people, they may call it their side hustle, but these are real businesses, and with the right supports, they can grow. So a hearty yes to the high-speed internet, but that would be the bare minimum. And there's a lot more than the bare minimum.
Awesome. Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, are you still looking for businesses to occupy these spaces, and how can they contact you, or how can they apply to get these spaces if they're available?
Oh, we have lots of space, lots of space. So yeah, I'll put my email in the chat, and please email me if you are looking for office space in the area, and let's see if we can make something happen.
Wonderful. Are you, as a follow-up to that, are you still looking for retailers as well for the mall area?
Perfect. We're looking for everything.
Okay.
You know, we've made a lot of progress here, but we still have, you know, a couple 100,000 square feet of empty space. And so we are, you know, we're approaching the end. We're approaching the end of of most of the physical renovations, but this is going to be growing and filling up for years to come. And if you've got an elevator pitch for me, email me. I'd love to hear it.
Yes, and I see a question from Renee. I saw Jarvis as one of the sponsors. Is Jarvis going to have a subdivision there?
They already do, and they have for a couple of years. They have about a 7,000 square foot space, which they use as their Dallas adjunct campus. It was originally inside the mall. Unfortunately, they had to move because we had another 90,000 square foot office tenant that needed to occupy that space, and so they're now in a different space in a two-story office building right at the edge of the property on Westmoreland in a beautiful space. So yes, they're there.
Wonderful, and thank you. So just to the audience, Peter has put his email in the chat. Please feel free to copy and paste that. So you can, you're absolutely inspirational. So anybody that wants to give him an elevator pitch, Casey, then you can. And while we're waiting for any last minute questions from the audience, what is the projected completion for this whole project? And can you follow that with what is next for you after this is completed? Or is this a lifelong journey for you?
Well, you know, I really think that it's never going to be completed. I would say that phase one should be complete by late 2022, mid 2023. And by phase one, I mean all of the mall buildings will have been renovated and at least partially occupied. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got 25 acres of additional land to develop. And as the area is sort of proven out financially, you know, we expect to be able to go vertical. It costs a lot of money to build a structured parking garage. It's something like $25,000 or $30,000 per space. So you can imagine that rents, you know, need to be higher in order to justify building a 10-story building with a structured parking garage. So, but if you can do that, a building that would currently take 10 acres because you have to surface park it, all of a sudden can take 2 acres because you can go vertical. And if that's the case, this could be going on for years and years and years and years. In terms of what's next for me, you know, this really is a passion project. It's something that I would ideally like to own and keep doing forever. I do have outside investors now. It long since outpaced my ability to do it alone. They don't necessarily want to do it forever. And so there will come a point where I've got to figure out, am I going to buy them out? Or are we going to sell it? Are we going to, you know, try to, you know, are they going to be willing to stay in for longer? But for right now, I'm 100% focused on getting this across the finish line.
Thank you. And there is one more question. As an architect and president of a contractors and professional association, we would love for you to share your success story to our Asian American community as well. Okay, so more of an invitation than a question. And she said, thank you for your hard work and your leadership. And Ken, I would encourage you to get Peter's email from the chat. And oh, okay, let me go ahead, and it looks like some people can't see it. Let me go ahead and send it again to everybody. And do you, Peter, do you do a lot of speaking engagements on this topic?
I do. This is probably the 300th time I've given this presentation. I hope it seemed fresh.
Oh,
but no, I love to get the word out. Really, it's the only way you're going to change the perception is to keep talking about keep telling the truth and tell it to as many people as possible. And so I take every speaking engagement opportunity that I can get.
Thank you so much, Peter. It looks like, Georgianne has one more question. Have you addressed energy efficiency in your presentation, or can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so, well, there's several layers to that. The first thing is that we're dealing with 40-year-old plant here, 40-year-old air conditioning units and chillers and water coolers and 40-year-old insulation and 40-year-old standards. And so just by bringing things up to code, we're significantly reducing the energy footprint. I can tell you we're looking at putting a new roof on the mall right now. I think you're required to have a couple feet of insulation now on a commercial roof. If there's 3 inches of insulation on the old roof, that would be a lot. And my construction manager said that essentially as soon as you cool this building, it gets sucked out through the roof. So just bringing things up to code, to today's code, and using today's more efficient machines reduces the energy footprint. Long term, the fantasy is, I don't know if it's a fantasy, the goal would be solar. Because if you think about one of the assets we have here, we have acres and acres and acres of rooftop. I mean, just one of the buildings, just the Macy's building, has about an acre and a half or an acre and 3/4 of rooftop. And there's many buildings. So it's probably all in 5 or 6 or 7 acres. So that's a lot of solar that you can put on there. And so that would really be our goal long term. But it's not something that's financially feasible right now. So right now we're really just focused on the energy efficiencies that kind of naturally come from renovating.
Thank you. Peter, is there anything you want to leave us with before we conclude your presentation? How can we as individuals help support this project?
Well, I appreciate that. The first thing I want to say is just thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you. In terms of supporting, I think it's really about encouraging people to come here and patronize the businesses. We're going to be successful if the businesses that lease from us are successful. And the more office space we can lease, the more crowded the stores will be, the more crowded the restaurants will be at lunch, and probably most importantly, the more we will do away with the assumption that there isn't an educated white collar workforce to leverage in this area. There absolutely is. And so we just need companies to believe that enough to put their companies here. And boy, you'd cut down on a lot of commuting time for a lot of people.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you to the audience for attending today. Once again, thank you to our speaker today, Peter Brodsky.
Thank you, everyone.